I am thrilled to share the following conversation on Square State. These two guests are some of my favorite people. I've known them now for years, and they are making a huge change in the financial space. They've targeted a community of people that typically I think people aren't focused on. There's different niches and groups of people out there that financial services aren't focused on, and they have cornered the market on this particular community, and they're killing it. This episode was recorded in the fall, so you'll hear some comments about the weather that you're like, oh my God, the weather is not doing that. Well, because we recorded it in the fall, so give me a break already. These guests also have the distinction of being the only guests and only episode that I didn't have to edit. It's so well recorded. There's no issues. I can't believe it. So I was pretty ecstatic about that. Also, on June 9th, you'll be able to connect with myself, Michelle Jackson, the guest who I'll announce as the show starts, Jason Vitug of Frugal and the Financial Road to Wellness. He is actually the person putting together the event that all of us will be at on June 9th at Porchlight Realty on Broadway. I'll include a link in the show notes as well. And also the fabulous Mindy Jensen from, I wanted to say Johnson, Jesus. Mindy Jensen from Bigger Pockets and 1500 Days. So you're going to get a lot of personal finance energy in one space. There's a brunch as well. In the episode, we joke about brunch a little bit, so I find that a little ironic, but please do make sure you check out the Financial Road to Wellness pit stop that will be happening in Denver on June 9th. We really, really want you to be there. If you aren't able to be there, please share the link with friends so that we can connect with as many people as possible. We're going to talk money, have some brunch, and just enjoy a great time hanging out. I'm really excited to see you guys there. Also on June 7th, a couple of days before, I'm hosting another Denver Welcome Mat event, and I will include a link in the show notes as well. The topic will be how to make professional and personal connections in Denver. That will be held at the Commons on Champa from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. It will be pretty low key, so I'm very excited to meet people, hang out, and I can't wait to see you that second week of June. Enjoy the episode. It's awesome. Hey everybody, welcome to Square State, not a podcast. I'm your host, Michelle Jackson, and today I'm bringing two of my favorite people. I love these guys, I really do. They are some of the most generous, kind-hearted people that I know here in Denver. I'm really excited to see what they are working on, how it's growing, and particularly how they can grow this project here in this wonderful state of Colorado and how living here helps them facilitate what they're doing. They are changing the face of money, specifically LGBTQT. There's a lot of letters, money, and I thought it was really important as I speak to different people throughout our region to bring them on because I believe so deeply in getting every community financially healthy and financially ahead. So today I'm welcoming the debt-free guys, John and David. Hey guys, how are you doing?
Hey there.
Great.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
I think we're ill prepared though. We didn't know this was a potless podcast.
Well, you know what? I decided to add that tagline because every time I talk about Colorado, the pot comes up. And so I was like, look, people, it's not a podcast.
Right.
Ironically, I do plan on interviewing some people in the cannabis industry. So we'll see how they like that tagline. But we'll just kind of go from there. And I saw Macbeth. You guys must go see Macbeth, okay? But
Okay.
I was like, maybe someone slipped me an edible halfway through this
That's
performance because
crazy.
I was tripped out. So anyway, introduce
Wow. I'm
yourselves.
sold. We're going.
You
Get our tickets
should.
tonight.
Yeah.
Hot dudes, like amazing music, good acting. It was it really tripped me out. It was so good. It is not your mother's Macbeth for the listeners out there. So introduce yourselves.
Sure. I'm John Schneider. I'm one half the Debt-Free Guys. I am the shorter, more petite half of the Debt-Free Guys.
I cannot
And the
believe you
balder
just said
one.
petite.
And the what?
I can't believe you just said
Balder.
I
petite.
thought you called me older.
Oh, ow, okay.
Rude.
Nope, just bald.
You guys are goofy.
And I'm David Otten, and the other half of the Debt Free Guys. I am the one with the hair that stands way up.
Yeah.
I
His
actually
his
really
hair is
love
worth
his
$1 million right now.
It is. If do you insure that hair? Because honestly, it's those are some luscious locks. Okay, I'm not trying to be inappropriate here, but I'm just saying you've got a good head of hair.
Yeah, I like to style it myself because I have none.
So, what is it you guys do? You said who you were, but what the heck do you do? Like, why on earth did I bring you on this show?
I don't know. I asked myself the very same question.
So John and I are a gay couple. We love to live a fabulous life, and our goal is to help other people in the LGBTQ community do the exact same thing without sacrificing their financial security. We all love to enjoy a great brunch on Sunday and have nice clothes and cars and homes and vacations, but oftentimes that can lead to lack of thinking ahead, lack of preparing for our future, and taking care of our financial responsibilities. So John and I, our goal is to show people exactly how they can do it without having to go broke.
How did you even get into this? Like, why on earth are you doing this? What compelled you to do this? And as far as I know, we're in the personal finance space, but I think that you're the only gay couple that I can think of talking about this. And we know about 1,500 people, give or take, who talk about money to a lot of different audiences. So I'm curious, how did you get into this? Why did you feel like this audience needed a voice? And why did you decide to be that voice?
Yeah, so we got into this because we were fabulously broke about 10 years ago. Here we were, about a year and a half after David and I got together, we realized that we had $51,000 worth of credit card debt between the two of us. And the irony was that at that time we had 17 years of financial services experience between the two of us.
Right.
Oh.
So we were working for financial services companies, helping other people in various ways, shapes, and form how to manage their money, but we were not doing it very well on our own. And a lot of it, because we realized in hindsight, was because we were trying to live up to the gay cliche of living fabulous and having all that great stuff and having all the outward appearance of success. But ironically, we were fabulously broke, we often say. So that's kind of how we got into it. We paid off our debt in 2.5 years, and we thought that we would use what we learned and our both our personal experience as well as our professional experience to write a book to help other people with their finances, which is exactly what we did. And that kind of evolved into a blog, which is what we have as Debt-Free Guys. And that personal finance community that you mentioned, the first time that we attended FinCon was in 2015. And we realized when we were there that there were all these different niches that people were targeting. You had your military spouses and your mommy bloggers and your couponers and your millennials. And we noticed that nobody was speaking to the gay community. And in fact, a couple of the people at FinCon said, "You're the only gay couple here, and nobody's talking to gay people. You should do it." And so we came home after that trip, and we thought about it, and we were like, nobody is speaking to our community. And it was about that time that same-sex marriage, marriage equality passed. And it seemed like after marriage equality passed, most financial services firms stopped talking about the financial nuances of the LGBT community. So we thought, well, there's a lot of concerns still in our community, just even though marriage passed. And so we thought we could be the voice for that community.
As you guys were talking, one of the things I thought of, you were saying you wanted to live this fabulous life, and I felt like it's not just a gay thing. I feel like that's a very American thing where we use credit and different things to live this American dream, and maybe like my question in my head was, what is the difference in your community as they show their American dream? Like where is the difference? Do you see what I'm saying? So I feel like Americans in general have this thing about we're flashy. There's a joke, and it's totally politically incorrect. So listeners,
Yay.
I understand that it is, but they joke about black people. Black people joke about this. You can't. About BMWs, which is black man's wish, okay? Or white people and their, 2.5 kids and their dog and their house, and then there was no furniture inside their house. So to me, I feel like it's a very American issue. What makes this issue different for gay people?
Well, one thing in particular, we've realized, having been in this market now for a couple of years, and also through our own experience, that many of us in the LGBT community have a lot of limiting beliefs about ourselves and about what we're worth. And a lot of that stems from not being able to be ourselves when we're younger, or being ostracized or bullied or picked on. 40% of homeless youth identify as LGBT, so they don't have a home. And that puts them behind the eight ball right from the beginning of their life. So as we know that a lot of that, our upbringing can really affect how we respond and react in adulthood, a lot of us then move out of our parents' home. We find our community of other LGBT people, and for the first time, we can be ourselves. And in mine and David's experience, when we found our new community, we still harbored those feelings of insecurity. So we did whatever we could to make sure that we lived up to their expectations. So we had all the fancy clothing and we did all the fancy travel, because we didn't want anybody to think that we couldn't live up to those expectations. And I think another reason for that cliche that we're all white, upwardly mobile gay couples is in part because it's still a hangover from the HIV/AIDS crisis.
Wow.
In the 80s, it was very likely that if you were a gay man especially, that you might not live until 40. And so there was this ethos that we're going to, carpe diem, we're going to live for today because very likely tomorrow we will die. But with the advancements in drugs and medication and protection, obviously it's not at the same crisis level as it was in the 80s. And many of us are living much longer than we used to. We just haven't changed our outlook in spending.
One of the things I wanted to know was what's the response been like? And actually, before we even go there, talk about your journey to debt freedom. What exactly did you do? So maybe there's someone listening to this episode. Maybe there's someone who is an ally for a person in your community, and they're like, wow, I have a friend that I really think would benefit from this advice. So could you break down 2 or 3 different things that you guys did to pay down your debt and also to still live a fabulous life without going broke, or continuing to be broke? Do you know what I mean? So
right.
Share what you guys did.
Well, I think one of the important things is where it came from. It was all sparked by John and I going on a trip up to the mountains, and we decided that we were going to go to a real estate office and look at property and buy land and build a house, all while we were living in a basement apartment. So we had this crazy, stupid fantasy of the life that we could have without having the means in which to do it. And it was when we had that realization of our lives were not as fabulous as we wanted them to be, or at all going in the direction that we wanted them to be. We knew that if we didn't make some changes, things were just going to get worse for us. It was that spark that caused us to start making those changes. And what we initially did is we looked at ourselves and said, where do we want to be? What are our goals? What kind of life do we really want to live? What's important to us? Was it going out and being flashy? Was it having the nice cars? Was it taking the great vacations? And we decided, no, that's not what's important to us. What was important to us is our time together. We wanted to travel, and we wanted to have a safe, secure retirement as much as possible. And the other important thing is we wanted to give back to our community. And so what we started to do is look at ways that we could eliminate the spending that was not in line with the things that we really wanted. So going out to $100 happy hours, $200 dinners every Friday or Saturday night just wasn't right. That wasn't in line with what we wanted. Going and buying $300 diesel jeans or spending, $150 on brunch with our friends, and that just wasn't in line with what we wanted. Now, those things are still fun, and we did still do some of them, but not to the degree that we had been doing before. And to a certain degree, John and I became the masters of our social life. And when we took control of our social life and said, these are the things we're going to do because they're in line with what we want, that's when our spending dropped drastically. Because we could say, hey, let's do a free day at the museum and then take a bottle of wine and hang out in the park. And, it would be a $10 or $20 day rather than going to brunch and dropping $100. So we figured ways that we could still have a good time. And one of the most important things that we did is we created a calendar of all the free and cheap things that we could do and still enjoy and have a fabulous life.
And there are
Denver
tons
has
of things
a
to do in
lot.
Denver.
Oh my
Right.
God. Denver is overwhelming actually with all the free and fun free things. I find that on any given day, especially during the weekend, it's very easy to double or triple book yourself and be overwhelmed by the options. So
Right.
to me, I think that that's a wonderful strategy. Did you find it to be off-putting to your friends? Was it easy to transition to that kind of lifestyle? What was the response like?
It was sort of twofold. We told several friends that we had some new financial goals. We wanted to pay off some debt, and that we weren't going to be able to live the same lifestyle that we were living. And what we found were two things. One, was a whole contingency of friends that had their own financial goals that if they cut back their spending, they could more easily meet as well. So whether it was paying off student loan debt or saving to buy a house or saving to have a child, various goals that they had. To them, it made sense. Maybe we don't need to go out every single weekend and buy all this expensive clothing that we don't necessarily need. So we kind of gravitated towards that community. Then there were other friends of ours who they didn't want to make a change. They didn't need to make a change. They weren't interested in that. And so we would just see them when we did go out on those rare occasions. And we kind of naturally sort of, I guess, evolved away from that. It wasn't anything decisive, and it wasn't that either of us did anything wrong. It was just kind of a natural evolution of that particular friendship.
What's it like living in Denver as a gay couple? This is a podcast really geared towards people who may be interested in moving to the state. Denver is a pretty progressive city, so I imagine it's pretty good living here. But kind of talk about that for someone who's thinking about living here, and what are your 3 favorite resources that you would recommend to someone moving here who's in your community?
Sure. It's good to be a gay person in Denver, I think. And of course, I'm speaking from a cis white male perspective.
Okay, wait. Before we talk, what does cis mean? I've been wondering this for a while now. What does that mean?
Oh, go ahead.
Cis basically means that the gender that you identify with on the inside matches the gender that you are on the outside. So I'm a white male, and I identify as a gay male. So I was born with that identity, and I identify with that both physically and mentally. And it's very different for someone who is not. John and I have brought up the statistic before that trans women of color earn $10,000 a year. There's just a complete difference
on average.
On average, difference between individuals who identify with the gender that they are born with.
I feel like that's a whole nother podcast too. Like that's
is.
very, very interesting to me. Like,
And we're not the expert on it.
Wow. You'll
get
have to
very
refer
complicated.
me to an expert on that, because I find it really disturbing, really sad, and very interesting all at the same time. So talk about what it's like for you guys to live here, and then your 3 favorite resources.
Sure. Yeah, so I think in general, Denver is a great place for LGBT people. There are several gay bars and clubs to go to if you're looking for that sort of outlet. There are several different sports leagues that focus on LGBT people. They also include allies, of course, too. Whether you're interested in kickball or football or softball, there's all sorts of groups you can become a part of. And then there are a couple of meetups that are sort of LGBT focused that do different activities throughout Colorado, whether it's hiking or going for a run. So you can really find your type of people who are also LGBT if that's what you're looking for. Politically, it's pretty good city to live in. I mean, for the most part, we can hold our hands in anywhere we go and not feel concerned for our safety. There are occasions that you'll go down a block, or depending on the time of day or the crowd of people in the corner, you kind of stop holding hands occasionally. But I think you probably have that in most cities. But then once you get out of Denver, for the most part, it's pretty amicable, and I think you have to go much further south for it to get somewhat uncomfortable.
Or further north. I think maybe going up to Wyoming, it might be a little more challenging.
Right.
Yeah.
I will say that at the state level and the city level, the protections that are afforded the LGBT community are some of the best in the country.
Oh.
And so we are protected by rights and laws that prevent discrimination that is systematic. Now, does it still happen? Yes, but we do have those protections versus somewhere like a Nebraska, Kansas, Wyoming, where they don't have those same protections. There are states where you can get fired because you are gay, because you are trans. We don't have that here in Colorado, so we're very fortunate.
Yeah, Governor Hickenlooper has been great for the LGBT community here in Colorado, and in fact, he has several LGBT people on his staff. So he understands them, I think, better than many politicians. Us.
And actually, could you talk about what you guys do as a resource for people who are either looking to move here, or for people who are just living somewhere else and would like to connect with you or connect with your services, your information? Like, how is it? Yes, you run this website and whatever, but how is it a resource for people? So when they come to your site, what is it exactly they will find? How will it serve them and their financial needs? And how can they, is there a way for people to connect with you locally for events, things like that? Do you collaborate with people within the community who are not only in the LGBTQ community, but in the greater community as well? Like, how does that look? How do you serve people?
Sure. So we have two platforms, essentially. The first is debtfreeguys.com, which is our website, and the second is our Queer Money podcast. And that is the show on which we predominantly talk about the financial nuances of the LGBT community. On our blog, we provide content that's centers a lot around our story and how we got out of debt and how we've overcome certain financial struggles. We also address some of the feedback or the questions that we get from direct messages or emails from people who read our blog. We're in the process right now of creating because we're debt-free guys, like we get a lot of people who come to our website saying, how can I get out of debt?
Fair enough.
We're actually creating a course right now to help people systematically, procedurally, step-by-step get out of debt, including a lot of the steps that David and I took to get out of debt, as well as many things that we've learned since we started doing Debt-Free Guys. And then our podcast, Queer Money, is available on, you can access that on iTunes, and that's a weekly podcast that we have. And we'll talk about various strategies to manage your finances and get out of debt, fix your credit score. But we also like to highlight other LGBT people who are successful, and not always financially successful necessarily, but they're living their best life. And so we have them on as inspirational stories on our podcast. As for partnering with local groups, we are part of a couple of LGBT groups in Denver, such as the Denver Gay Professionals, the Colorado Gay and Lesbian Chamber of Commerce. They just changed the name, so I probably botched that up.
I'll double check it before I put it in the links.
And then we haven't partnered with any local businesses who aren't LGBT, but we have partnered with some bigger brands who are trying to connect better with the LGBT community.
Yeah, for example, this week we are doing a workshop with a large bank, and we are talking about relationships and money with an audience, and John and I are just one of 3 couples that are going to be on a panel, and actually there's a game show type event first, and then we're going to be talking about how we work as couples on our money. And the whole goal there is that John and I want to let our community know that they can see themselves in the financial advice that a lot of these companies offer or suggest. It has been for such a long time, we haven't seen ourselves represented in advertising or in print material that is used by these organizations, brokerage firms, banks, companies that are trying to provide financial advice, and we're pushing the envelope to get more of them to do that. And that really will help us see ourselves in that position of being able to make progress financially.
If you're a person who is inspired by what you're doing and you're like, well, maybe they're the only people who need to write about this niche area in finance, what would you say? Would you encourage them to start their own blog or podcast or both? And what would be the first 3 things you would recommend that they do?
Yes. Start a blog. That's our advice to everybody right now. One of our passions right now, as well as trying to create a stronger queer community by creating stronger, financially strong individuals, is to inspire and motivate more LGBT people to aspire for positions of leadership and to become entrepreneurs in their own way. And David and I believe that whether you want to become a leader in your industry, in a business that you are, a company that you work for, or whether you want to become an entrepreneur within an industry, we think that having a blog and strengthening your voice and getting comfortable being heard and having people challenge your beliefs and thoughts is great for everybody. So whether you want to become an LGBT, share your art, or to share your recipes, or even if you want to get into the personal finance space yourself, we highly advocate definitely doing that and becoming a blogger for sure.
Yeah, we actually have a post called Gay Bloggers Are Changing the World. And that it basically is our stance on why we want more individuals to get out there and share their voice so that we are being heard more. The LGBT community is being heard more, especially for each other in areas that are not traditionally what most people would think. I mean, a lot of people think that most gay men are hairdressers or entertainers, or they work in the theater, or
the cliche.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a lot of cliches, and we want to break those cliches and show that there's a lot of people out there who are doing lots of other things that they can be just as successful and fabulous with their lives.
What's it like living in Denver, just on a personal level? Like, do you like it? Do you not like it? What are things that you would change? What's a week in the life?
Well, right now I would change the weather. This is
It's like this weird basic, listeners, you don't even understand. So before we start recording, we were like, so I guess fall is going to be about 4 days, and then it's just going to be winter. So yeah, we're having some
more
crazy weather.
Sunny days.
Yes.
Normally it's sunny, and it's not sunny, and it's very intense.
Denver's good. It's a fun. Colorado's a fun state. Denver's a great city. I moved here from Philadelphia, and I was a little bit apprehensive, thinking it wasn't going to be as metropolitan as I needed it to be. But there's a great LGBT scene here. There's a great art scene here. There's just great people. And so it's a great combination to, if you want to do anything from theater to hiking to camping to going to concerts in the best venue in the world, other than maybe the Parthenon. It's a great place to be. And in Denver, you can, for the most part, still, I guess, except for all these Californians that keep moving in, you can drive anywhere pretty quickly.
Let's not talk about that.
The other thing that David and I like, because we do like to travel, and I still have family on the East Coast, is Denver's a great city because you can get to either side of the country pretty quickly. Not unless you're going down to, I guess, Miami. Doesn't seem like it's a long flight.
Right.
That's like a 4-hour flight. I feel like the
Yeah.
last time I went, I don't even know, 5 hours. It was a haul. It's like by the time I go to Miami, I might as well just keep going to Europe. Just like why bother? Like, let's not even stop. Like, let's just keep on going.
And you can get to Mexico so quickly. I mean, you're almost landing by the time you're done your drink.
Yeah.
And what's your favorite thing to do on the weekends? Is there a particular thing? Are you guys brunch guys when you feel it's appropriate, or what do you do?
No, we don't actually brunch a whole lot anymore. I don't know. I think all of our friends stopped doing that for some reason. They stopped inviting us.
Expensive. But, so are you hiking guys? Is that what's happening? Or you just are hustling and making your vision of the debt-free guys kind of come to fruition? I feel like you're really in a busy work mode right now.
We are, but last year John and I took some extra money and we treated ourselves to brand new single speed bikes.
Ooh.
They're bright colors and
they're gay.
We love
Those are
riding
really
them.
nice bikes, though. I've seen pictures, and I was like, "You're so Colorado with your freaking gear." Like,
Yeah.
In fact, talk about the gear, because that is actually a very real thing. Gay, straight, whatever you do, gear is an issue, and that costs money. So you guys allocated money towards that, but for people who are moving here, kind of talk about the gear thing and exercise, because that really is a real issue.
Yeah, so that's one of the other things that I love about Colorado, although I don't do it as much as I would like to. There is a thriving outdoor sports enthusiasm here, whether it's hiking, snowboarding, snowshoeing, kayaking. There, you name it, you can do it out here. I mean, if you have a surfing business here, more power to you. But I think that there probably are some places where they do teach a little bit of surfing. But besides that, I think that there's almost every single sport you can think of here. And you're right. If you want to engage in all those sports, it can become extremely expensive. So you have to think about ways that you can do that kind of stuff and keep the cost down. Find friends who are the same size as you and switch off in gear, or borrow their kayak, or go in together on items. And there's so many ways that you can do things outdoors that are not expensive. There's hiking. There's all sorts of things to do in the mountains. When you put your mind to it, you can still find those things that are lower cost than having to shell out $1,200 per weekend to do something fun.
Yeah, I think I've had the same snowboard for the last 10 years. So.
You just need to get the thing waxed.
Just take care of it.
But I got my snowboard. A friend of mine was moving, and so she was like, "I'm moving to a place that has no mountains, so I'm just going to give you the board." Yeah, and it's really funny. I've gotten 3 free bikes. I have my snowboard. I had to get my own boots because my feet were bigger than hers. That was the only difference. Every once in a while, I think about the amount of gear that I have, and it's a little alarming. So actually, I have a bike. I have a snowboard. I have all the hiking gear, like the actual good. And it took me years to decide to even buy that, because I grew up here. So I grew up hiking in tennis shoes, actually. And that's not uncommon, but I was like, you know what? I'm getting too old for this crap. So I need like proper footwear, or else I'm going to tear my feet up. So it has been really interesting looking at the gear that I have, but I'm very proud to say that most of it I got for free, which is good.
Yeah, there's a contingency of people out here that just can't stop buying gear, and then they have too much, and then they just give it to you for a discount or for free.
Right. I love those people.
You just need to go on Craigslist or eBay. There's tons of people selling stuff, whether that's because they're trying to downsize, or maybe they're trying to pay off debt, or they just bought something and used it for a couple of years and are done with it, and they want to move on to something different.
Oh, and you know what? I have two final questions. The last one is, if someone's moving here, what's the cost of living, and how do you perceive it to be? You own, but you still observe things. So what would you say to someone who's like, yeah, I'm looking to move here, and what's the cost of living like?
It depends on where you're coming from.
Yeah, coming from California, it's a discount.
Oh, dang.
Yeah, so nationally, Denver has crossed the line and that we're starting to creep a lot further above average for housing, especially. There's a high demand in Denver for housing. There are thousands of apartment units coming online right now, and it's just baffling that there are so many other buildings being built. But the vast majority of them are quote unquote luxury apartments, and not built for the $40,000 wage earner. So it can be very expensive, and that can be a drain on your finances, and it can be a drain on you emotionally when you move to a city like Denver and you can't afford the things that you want to be able to have. But that doesn't mean that it's not possible. There are plenty of places where you can find. You're just going to have to recognize that you're not living in those luxury apartments. You can find places that are lower cost.
Yeah, I think a good comparison is mine and David's mortgage. That we bought our condo in 2007, so we were underwater for a couple of years. But right now, our mortgage is half of what our next door neighbors rent is each month.
That's so hilarious to me. Not that they're paying so much, but that, that would be kind of cold, right? But we both bought in the same year, actually, and my mortgage is half the average of what people pay in rent.
Yeah.
So it's shocking to me. And I will actually include a link to a show that I just recorded right before I spoke to you guys with my realtor, Carrie Lundberg, where we talk about buying a property in this market. So listeners, please do note that there will be a link to that episode as well. So if people would like to get in touch with you, how would they do that?
We are Debt-Free Guys everywhere. Debtfreeguys.com, Debt-Free Guys on Facebook, on Twitter. What else are we on?
You're everywhere.
We're on Instagram, but we're John and David on Instagram. But we also have the Queer Money podcast, which you can type in Queer Money anywhere, and that'll come up as well. You can direct message us, or you can email us through our website as well. There's a contact page on debtfreeguys.com.
Oh, that's cool. Well, thank you guys so much for stopping by, figuratively speaking.
Well, thank you so much for having us. It's an honor to be on your show.
It's been a pleasure. I hope that this serves people well. Please do get in touch with them. They're very mission driven. They are not messing around with helping people live their best financial life and their best lives. And just thank you again so much for stopping by. You guys are awesome.
Thank you.
You are too.